sponsored by the Degama Group.
Welcome to Rumbo Minero. My name is Jorge Leon Benavides, and together with Cesar Campos, we are going to develop the following program. Cesar, how are you?
What a pleasure, Jorge, as always.
Well, we have as our guest Jaime de Althaus, anthropologist and journalist, to talk about this very important topic, a clear path for mining formalization. He has been doing his column in El Comercio on Saturdays, and I think this is an interesting topic for him to comment on.
Pablo O'Brien, who is an independent consultant in social management and also a very well-known communicator, we are going to talk about the recent attacks that have been made on formal mining, fundamentally in Patas, and the effects that this may attract.
We are going to talk a little bit about Exponor Chile, an event in Chile, with the president of the Peruvian-Chilean chamber, Juan Carlos Fisher, and with the head of manufacturing of Promperu, the Merlaba. So a very complete program, and hopefully it will be to the liking of all of you. Let's now listen to the main mining news of the week by Gabriela Chicoma.
Thank you, Jorge. These are the main mining news of the week.
The Ministry of Energy and Mines announced that at the end of 2023, mining investments would have totaled around $4,500 million, a drop of 16.10% with respect to the $5,364 million reached in 2022. In the fourth quarter of 2023, Herschel Mining obtained an attributable production of 82,251 ounces of gold equivalent, or 6.8 million ounces of silver equivalent, slightly higher than in the third quarter. Total production at the end of last year was 300,749 ounces of gold equivalent, or 25 million ounces of silver equivalent. According to the Economic Impact Study and the province of Cusco, Herschel Mining has allocated to date 559 million soles in social contributions to the province of Espinar, Cusco, during the last decade. These investments have been fundamental to promote sustainable development in the region.
Many thanks to Gabriela Chicoma for the main mining news of the week. We now meet Jaime de Althaus, anthropologist and journalist. Of course, we have invited him. He has been here before, but we have invited him especially because in his Saturday column in the newspaper El Comercio, he has developed a topic such as the serious mining formalization plan that we want him to tell us a little more about.
How are you?
How are you?
Doing?
Well, very
Fine.
well. Thank you very much for the invitation. Tell us a little bit. Thank you for coming. Tell us a little bit about this column, about what you have developed there, with a subject that we have been dealing with in Rumbo Minero, with Cesar, with various specialists. And it seems to be a formula that nobody has been able to decipher so far, right? Tell us a little about your contribution to this.
Well, in fact, the column originates in this mobilization of the informal miners, possibly illegal, also against the legislative decree that in good account seeks to sincerify the reinfo. It is not true to say that the reinfo is to be withdrawn. All those who do not have, let's say, a valid registration and everything else, so that the reinfo is not used as a roe deer patent for illegal miners who can continue commercializing, selling, being in fact illegal. But there are not only illegal miners, there are also many informal miners. And so the issue is that a fundamental solution is needed. Let's say you can effectively close the reinfo. In fact, the reinfo is going to be closed down on December 31st of this year. And it has to be closed because it's really kind of cheating, guys, for years that it's been postponed, reproposed, extended, and everything else. And the problem of informality is not solved. Here is an interesting fact. For example, in Arequipa, there are 3,350 informal miners that have a valid registration in the RINFO. Valid means that they have presented their instruments, their environmental instruments, to be approved such as the Ligafon mining plan and others, but the regional government does not process them. Last year, the regional government only formalized or approved 20 of the 3,350. That is to say, at this rate, we are going to reach the year 3000 without having formalized anything. That is to say, the system that was devised to formalize is not being formalized. It never worked, and it does not work.
So, Jaime, from your point of view, what was the original sin of the re-info? What was it that went wrong so that this did not take shape? Because when it came out at the time, almost as a magic solution, it seemed that it was close to the pretension, evidently, of formalizing all this mining sector.
Well, I think there are several things, no? On the one hand, let us say, the requirements that are requested are in many cases too demanding, in some cases even at the level of formal mining, if what is requested should be simplified. In other cases, what happens is that this has been entrusted to the regional governments because the artisanal and small miner level corresponds to the regional mining directorates of the regional governments, and the regional governments do not have any processing capacity, and so they do not process, it does not work. In other words, this has to be taken away from the regional governments, and a national entity has to be created, or let us say, use what already exists. There is a general directorate for formalization in the Ministry of Energy and Mines, but it is very weak, very small, perhaps a kind of COFOPRI, let us say. But for mining formalization, the mining cadastre was developed in the 90s and it worked quite well. From that point on, we would have to do serious work to identify the different types of realities that exist. Because of the supposed 400,000 or more informal miners, in reality they are miners themselves. That is to say, owners of the operation of the mine mouth. In the end, there are no more than 10 or 15,000, probably according to those in the know. All the rest are workers. They are workers of these miners, both owners and workers in the informal sector. This worker is that they normally receive a payment in gold. That is, they work. Let's say, I can say 30 days for the miner and the production of 10 days, let's say, for the miner. Production of 10 days, let's say, is already for the miner.
But the essential thing that you say is that the regional governments should no longer be empowered in this matter. This is obviously a failure from every perspective and in many aspects. For example, a recent bill called Territorial Reorganization also gave or gives to the regional governments, in addition, a kind of magic wand to give solutions to something that rather under another concept, which is that of territorial development, a completely different vision is being established. It cannot pass through the empowerment of governments.
Mining. No, I think this is such a complex problem that involves so many people and potentially so important from the economic point of view and from a criminality point of view. Let's say criminality takes advantage of this situation. This requires a serious plan, a body that really starts to solve this issue. Another problem that Renfo has had is that many of these miners are also in third-party concessions, and so they have to present a contract. And then they have to present a contract. And this has to be handled well. For example, this legislative decree that has come out requires to present an exploitation contract within 90 days, but only with those owners of the concession that have authorization to explore and exploit. And according to what they tell me, in the MINEM itself, in the Ministry of Energy and Mines itself, there are no more than 2,000 of the 80,000 that are in Rainfall, that are in concessions or in places of the concessions that have permission to exploit, that are exploring or exploiting. That is to say that it is a very limited number, and if it is limited, it is manageable from the point of view of the solution that can be sought in those cases.
Of course, but they in turn, those who have, because what they were saying in the march is that they do not have permission from the land, right? So there are two things, right? If it is private, someone has to get, that is the owner has to get his permit, and at the same time, he has to subcontract with contracts, right? Subcontracting the people who are going to do mining as if it were, or hiring them as employees. But there has to be a solution. there is a little bit of illegality there as well. And then this and other lands belong to the government, they belong to the state. So those lands, the state would have to find a way, I don't know, to park them. But we have to find a solution, because while more than $2.5 billion a year are being handled, and the gold goes out of Brazil, and Brazil to Brazil, and Brazil to Brazil, and the gold comes out of Brazil and Bolivia, the government is left without even a piece of the cake being natural resources of all Peruvians, right?
And since there is no kind of management or regulation, then it is produced, harmful mining is practiced, mercury is used in the processing of gold, etc., etc. Gold processing, etc. There is no way to control, to order, to improve the technological level of these exploitations. So it is clear, for example, Rafael Belaunde Sr. proposes to reduce the size of the squares, which according to him are very large, so they would have to be divided into 4. Because not necessarily, let's say, in a mining concession, the parts of the concession that are really exploited are very small. So if you divide it, you will have more space for the, let's say, that those who are in the concession can work in a place. Anyway, you have to look for solutions, and they are complex arrangements, because this problem has to be solved. If Peru were to solve this problem, we would have to make a civilizational leap, I would say, a very important one, and a leap in the level of legality, let us say, of the rule of law that we have. And it is also a way to close the space, to take away space from illegal mining, from criminality.
Probably with the structure of smaller grids, we promote an elementary principle in all these type of activities, which is the associativity. It is also clear that we have to aim at that, so that if they manage a very small concession, they can associate with others. A final question on my part, Jaime, regarding the end of the march to which you alluded, because they arrived at the Congress. They were received by representatives of Peru Libre, who spoke of the mining oligarchy that in some way does not allow or hinders or does not favor formalization. What do you think about these concepts that suddenly some people take politically out of hand, as Ivan Arenas has stated in a recent article saying that politicization is also involved in this whole problem?
Yes, of course, there is what I have called a kind of ideological utilitarianism, because these are really small businessmen, or medium-sized in some cases, hyper-capitalists, but let us say they make use of a rhetoric, of a narrative, as they say now, ideological of the left, because they use, let us say, the rhetoric of the party of the bench that is receiving us in Congress, which is Peru Libre or Guido Veído, in short, these people, right? They are the ones who in some way were promoting informal and illegal mining during Castillo's government, giving them a free hand. Then, of course, they wrap themselves in that ideology that serves them. So they accuse the mining oligarchy of being responsible for this legislative decree, right? They even asked for a constituent assembly to put an end to this mining oligarchy, which is international.
We are completely outdated.
Of course, but in reality, they are using the political weapons given to them, let us say, by the bench that is receiving us in the Congress, so that they give it entrance, right? So there is also a lack of other benches, which makes popular force, which does not receive them, does not listen to them, does not look for a solution. At the time, in the 90s, in Fuerza Popular, they have forgotten the progress made in the 90s. In the 90s, the mining cadastre was made, which was, let us say, fundamental to find a solution to this. So then look for the engineers of that time and build a solution with. At the PCM, they do not receive them. They are, that is to say, you have to, there are a lot of...
You have to sit at the table.
You have to sit at the table and see, well, what is the problem? There we are looking for solutions, and we have to find a way out, and not just a purely punitive or temporary way out, let's say, right? All right, thank you very much, Jaime.
Thank you very much, Jaime. Your column was very clear and very interesting. We hope to have you on another opportunity here at Rumbo Minero.
Thank you for the invitation.
Now let's go with a commentary on Expo Mina from Gabriela Chicoma. Go ahead, Gabriela.
Thank you very much. Expomina Peru on September 1, 2024 will be chaired by Luis Rivera, Executive Vice President of Golfis Las Americas, and integrated by an advisory board of renowned mining leaders who will support us in achieving a magnificent organization. Highlight your brand through the different sponsorships we offer at Expomina Peru. Networking opportunities, participation in exclusive activities, promotion in the media, among other important benefits. For more information, visit our website www.expominaperu.com.
Well, in our America Mining block, we are now linked from Wall Street, New York, with José Gonzáles, international editor of our magazine Rumbo Minero. José, how are you?
Olivia, very well, Jorge. Thank you. Nice to be with you always.
José, the last incident in Jordan where 3 U.S. soldiers were killed and 20 more were wounded by a drone used by a militia group linked to Iran has added tensions in the oil markets, which, remaining stable, are anxiously watching the U.S. response. Adding this event to the conflicts in Ukraine and Gaza, what are, shall we say, the prospects in the context of crude oil quotations, taking into account these problems that have happened?
According to Barron's, Jorge, oil markets are nervous about the ongoing violence in the Middle East. That is to say, already the publication that energy market operators have remained on the alert regarding oil prices, which have not increased their quotations substantially despite the violence in the East. And if they do so, they could increase the economic cost of the conflicts and mark a return of inflationary pressure. And the situation is indeed becoming more complicated after the death of the 3 U.S. Armed Forces personnel and those wounded in a drone strike on a logistics base in Jordania by these radical Iranian-backed militias. President Biden has vowed to retaliate, and financial markets are in anticipation of action. Meanwhile, any action against Iran would not only actually expand the conflict in Israel beyond Gaza, but would also affect energy prices. Brent crude has traded around $82 a barrel during the week, while West Texas Intermediate crude was trading just over $77, with analysts interviewed by Barron's noting that the Biden administration in an election year is most likely to act in a way that will minimally affect oil prices. According to them, any level above 85 hours per barrel for Brent is a danger zone in an election year. A year ago, Brent was trading above $87, while WTI was hovering around $79, with the Biden administration having done everything possible and impossible to keep prices low. According to Barron's, oil prices also reacted to reports that U.S. negotiators had made progress on a deal under which Israel would temporarily suspend fighting in Gaza for 2 months in exchange for the release of the 100 or so hostages captured by Israel in the attack. On October 7, the publication concludes that despite the prevailing calm, the market is still experiencing a very real risk in quotation marks of returning to the situation of 1919, when more than half of Saudi Arabia's production was reduced after attacks in the Persian Gulf, pointing out that the Strait of Hormuz is the most crucial supply bottleneck in the oil market and around which there is today a conflict with the Houthi militia that is attacking ships in the Red Sea. Year, months, weeks of tensions in the energy markets.
And speaking of energy markets and the United States, the Biden administration, Jose, this week has decided to freeze the licenses for the export of liquefied gas. What is the reason for this measure, and what are the probable effects it will have?
Important decision, Cesar, and that could have an effect on the dynamics of Peruvian gas production in the community, that we are a producer and potential exporter of gas. The Biden administration has frozen all approvals for new licenses to export liquefied natural gas from the United States, a moratorium that Bloomberg notes affects billions of dollars in projects underway. The U.S. Department of Energy project is looking at natural gas exports. Europe does, and other countries with which the United States does not have free trade agreements, reviewing new exports on a case-by-case basis to determine if they are in the public interest. The laws linked to the public interest date back to 2018. According to President Biden, the moratorium is related to the impact exports have on energy costs. Energy security in the United States and the environment is a very controversial measure that has generated a lot of noise this week, generating an outcry from gas producers. But it points, according to Bloomberg, to the future debate on gas as power generation, and therein lies the relevance for Peru. On the one hand, he pointed out the advocates of gas. It reduces the use of coal in order for Europe to be less dependent on coal to generate electricity and maintain its independence from Russia. However, environmentalists point out that the infrastructure being built to liquefy and export gas could mean that we will be burning gas for decades to come, and that the development of alternative energies will be displaced in favor of gas. In the meantime, the Congressional Energy and Natural Resources Committee is convening hearings to investigate the decision, while the Department of Energy's national laboratories are conducting studies to define the case that will take several months. They will take into account factors related to markets, economics, national security, and environmental considerations related to greenhouse gas emissions to make recommendations to the White House. Gas is cleaner than coal. However, it is not very clear what the effects of methane, which is the major element in liquefied natural gas, are on global warming. U.S. natural gas, on the other hand, is produced via fracking, and fracking has a shale effect on water use and soil contamination. The United States is currently the largest gas producer in the world, and its production plus that of Norway has enabled gas prices to be kept under control in Europe. After the invasion in Ukraine, there are 7 liquefied gas export operations already in the United States, 10 approved projects that will continue, 4 projects that will be directly affected, and a dozen that will also be affected by the invasion. That will also be affected by this new decision. A debate says that we have to pay attention to, particularly in Peru, as a gas producer and being the second largest copper producer in the world, the fact that gas does not displace renewable minerals favors critical minerals.
Well, thank you very much, Jose, for the information, and we look forward to seeing you next week. We will. Well, as you know, Rumbo Minero magazine is a magazine where the international editor is José Gonzáles and our entire Rumbo Minero team. You can enter www.rumbominero.com and you will be able to access the virtual magazine, download all the information every 45 days, more than 400 pages of very important information, not only about mining in Peru, but also about mining in the Americas. You can download it free of charge at rumbominero.com.
So, Jorge, it is time to present the AMSAC Mining Assets block.
Activos Mineros. AMSAC is a Peruvian public company with a great purpose: to give life back to the planet. Thus, we are dedicated to contributing to the sustainable development of the country through mining environmental remediation. In AMSAC, we recover the areas affected by high and very high-risk mining liabilities, which are in a situation of abandonment, or in which the state has not identified the responsible parties. In this line of work, today we are present in 11 regions of Peru, with a portfolio of 65 remediation projects, which are located in different phases. Promotion of private investment. At AMSAC, we represent the Peruvian state as counterpart of the transfer contracts of important mining projects, and we also supervise the fulfillment of the commitments and obligations that are part of such processes. Today we are leaders in business management systems. Among the 35 companies of the FONAFE Corporation, we are certified ISO 9001 in quality management, ISO 14001 in environmental management, ISO 37001 in anti-bribery management, and ISO 45001 in occupational health and safety management. At AMSAC, Sustainability and care for the planet are our DNA. And for this reason, we are proud to contribute to creating a better world through the recovery of air, water, soil, and ecosystems impacted by mining liabilities. And thus contribute to 10 of the 17 Sustainable Development Goals by the year 2030. Giving life back to the planet is more than a simple phrase for us. It is the guide of our daily actions, with which we positively impact the lives of thousands of Peruvians, and through them, our country.
Well, as we had announced, we now meet Pablo O'Brien, independent consultant in social management and communications. We are going to talk a little bit about a new attack on formal mining and its effects on investments. How are you, Pablo? Welcome to Rumbo Minero again.
Thank you very much for your invitation. A pleasure as always.
Well, we are seeing strange constant attacks. There is an issue of high voltage pylons being knocked down, deaths. And in the area of Patas, it is more acute. But there are other areas in Peru where we are seeing, let's say, illegal. But there are other areas in Peru where we are seeing, let's say, illegal mining in some cases, because we all know that there is artisanal mining. There are those who want to formalize, which are still informal, but they want to formalize. And from there, we have another group that does not want to formalize.
Of course, this is what Dante Vera and others have begun to call criminal mining, which is already in the hands of criminal organizations, such as the Aragua Train and others. For example, this recent murder of a miner in Patas, a tremendously cruel murder, those who have been behind this have been a group, which are the Pulpos, apparently, according to police information. They are also operating in this zone. That is to say, you have the Aragua Train and the Pulpos, which is a criminal group from Trujillo, which was dedicated to these extortions. You will remember that they put stickers on the transports. They are now also operating in this area of Patas. And this attack that has taken place, which is not the first, it is already the third or fourth, if memory serves me correctly. There was even one recently, last August, when there was this whole problem of the stoppages in which they wrapped the high tension towers as a reprisal or as a way of intimidation to prevent them from continuing with mining activities, because without electricity, there is no mining activity. So this situation that is being experienced permanently in this area is now totally out of control. And the measures that the government has been taking, such as declaring a state of emergency or expanding police posts in the area, are not having any effect. In other words, the declarations of emergency in the country, which were supposed to impose order, are now absolutely declarative. And the problem, as we have mentioned in other of our conversations, is that Peru, as a state, as a nation, is losing territorial control of vast areas. It is no longer only the Brem, and now we have Patas, and supposedly in Patas, we also have 3 important mining projects.
But there is a migration about the product. They talk about that too. In other words, it is one thing if you have illegal gold and another thing if you have cocaine.
Of course, obviously, I would rather be an illegal miner than a cocaine producer. Activities of this type, which have become extremely profitable, are more risky
There are many things in quotation marks
than being a trafficker. So this situation is happening. In spite of that, it should also be pointed out, cocaine production in Peru has not decreased. It is the same. Yes, this transfer is not so automatic. I mean, I continue to do this, and I also dedicate myself to this other thing. But I can say, where did you get all this money from? Well, from mining. So it's a way of laundering even with illicit activity, because mining is illicit activity, legal. Because mining is a legal activity. It's just that if you do it in a certain way, it becomes an illegal activity. No, that is drug trafficking. Drug trafficking is totally illegal.
Pablo mentioned one. I think the loss of territorial control is a key concept. I'm afraid that it has not been permanently in place, even when we talk about the drug trafficking issue, right? Because in reality, all this that starts with informality and then moves to illegality evidently overflows, and there is no state empire to put its foot there. How can it be recovered, at least in the case of drug trafficking, with interdictions, with international commitments to recover territorial control where this illegal mining is currently operating?
Look, I believe that this is already becoming, it is not strictly a problem of internal order. There are other issues to be solved, economic, social issues to be seen, but I believe that it is very important to make a realistic policy of mining formalization. In other words, we must really start to think about what we should do to generate the issues of an authentic mining formalization, to separate the wheat from the chaff. And that is what is needed. There is a lot of money.
There is not a lot of money there. There is not a lot of money.
They are the nation's resources. Of the nation, yes. In other words, the people who are engaging in these activities and who do not pay taxes, etc., in reality are putting their hands in the pockets of all Peruvians. In other words, they are going to steal everything from us.
We are going to be stealing from all of us. We are running out of time, and I wanted to touch on the second part, which is the investment issue. All this mess as an image for investors. How do you see the issue?
No, it is not only an image problem, it is a real problem. In other words, not being able to operate because they blow up a tower is very serious. But if we look at other mining projects that are invaded by illegal miners, such as, for example, the Bambas, which have illegal mining inside the pits, both Sulfobamba, which is in the community of Huancuiti, which is doing illegal mining activity, but also the future pit, which is Sulfobamba, which is in the community of Pamputa, where they say that there are 1,500 illegal miners in that area. I consider it extremely difficult to carry out this project. The Los Chancas mining project of Sauder in Apurimac is also invaded by illegal miners. This situation is extremely serious because you are simply not going to be able to develop those projects that are in the portfolio. The fact that the Huancuiti pit has not been built so far is extremely serious for Peru. It should have been finished in the year 2020, started to be built and exported. The authority is failing us. The problem is what Cesar mentioned a moment ago. The problem is that Peru cannot comply with the laws, and that makes us an unviable country. That is the big problem. A law has just been passed. Supposedly, if in 90 days you are not formalized, the reinfo is closed and you are illegal. Are we going to be able to comply with this law? In other words, the Peruvian state has the capacity to enforce the law, and the problem of informal and illegal mining has become a very serious internal problem, not only because of the presence of these activities and these organizations, but also because of the penetration of these activities in politics.
Politics, your impression on the mobilization of last Monday, which was, in our opinion, numerous, I do not say forceful, but anyway, a mobilization where it was visualized almost as a national issue, obviously, as the claims of this sector had to be. What is your impression? Did they achieve anything? Did they have any impact? I don't think so.
They did not achieve what they wanted. In addition, they wanted to pressure Congress to pass the law opening the reinfo. They did not succeed. But I think that it is also a time when it is very difficult to mobilize illegal miners because it is a rainy season. It is complicated. I believe that this is a battle that the country as a nation is going to have to fight in the next months. It is not an issue that I believe has been closed when they really realize that they will no longer be able to carry out their activities. Surely, there will be greater demonstrations, but what is likely is that nothing will happen and that this law will finally remain a letter of the law. And that this law will finally remain a dead letter, like the great majority of laws, because unfortunately, we have a very corrupt police force. Unfortunately, we have a very corrupt police force, institutions such as SUNAT, etc., which should be activated to do these things, are not going to do anything. there is no clear idea in the Ministry of Energy and Mines of what to do. So this situation is just going to float there, and the activity is going to continue developing without major consequences.
Thank you very much, Pablo O'Brien, for being with us, consultant, specialist in social management. And we hope to have you on Rumbo Minero some other time. It's a pleasure. Thank you very much for nothing. Now let's go to Gabriela Chicoma's announcements on Spomina. Go ahead, Gabriela.
Thank you very much. Expomina Peru, the largest and most important mining event of the year 2024, with 16 years of trajectory, with the special participation of the United States as the guest mining country. Expomina Peru is the only Peruvian event certified by the United States Department of Commerce. Do not be left out and be part of this great mining event. Reserve your booth at Expomina Peru. For more information, visit our website, www.expominaperu.com.
Well, now I would like to welcome Juan Carlos Fisher, President of the Chilean-Peruvian Chamber of Commerce, and Elmer Lava, Head of Manufacturing of Promperu. We are going to talk about the Peruvian presence at Exponor. As you all know, an important event in Chile. 2024. Starting a little bit with welcoming you both. Thank you very much for being on Rumbo Minero again. Juan Carlos, what are the new features of this new version of Exponor 24.0, and in what context of mining in Chile will it be held?
Good morning. Thank you very much for the invitation. You know that Exponor is one of the most important fairs in the mining, and for Chile it is tremendously important above all because of the level of success that the Peruvian presence has had since it began. I have been fortunate enough to have been invited, and there is a great deal of enthusiasm for the Peruvian presence. Exponor's directors say that this time they are giving it a lot of impetus and a lot of emphasis. To the issue of sustainability and the systematization of mining issues. Chile and Peru are on the let's say, mutual investment in the mining sector, and that is really tremendously important for Chile and Peru, specifically for Exponor and the Peruvian presence. The times I have been there, it is really exciting, I would say, to see the interest there is in Peru. So obviously, to say a priori, what is expected from the fair? Obviously, a lot of presence and to encourage the operations that took place last year.
The meringue will consist of the participation of Peruvian suppliers, and what kind of activities will be carried out there in this honor?
This will be the 7th consecutive participation of a Peruvian pavilion in Exponor, and mainly what we are looking for is that Peruvian testers, mainly those who attend small, medium and large mining, can generate contacts, have networking with the visitors of the fair, and in this sense we are expecting the interrelation with mining companies, mining contractors, among others, as well as the Peruvian Commercial Office in Chile, will generate a business agenda with these mines. Also generates a business agenda with these mines I mentioned. For example, we can have Coyahuasca, Codelco, Sierra Gorda, among others, for specific individual appointments for our exportable offer. Peruvian suppliers can also take the opportunity to visit mining sites, because Antofagasta is Chile's mining region par excellence. They will also have the opportunity to participate in seminars, other networking talks, among others. But mainly what we are looking for is to position, consolidate and promote Peru's exportable offer, which has a quality exportable offer.
Juan Carlos, Peru is still an attractive country for investments for Chilean supplier companies, in spite of the political and social situation we are going through, you think? And do you have an estimate of how many supplier companies, mining companies working in Peru?
Look, according to the figures that have been confirmed to us, we are talking about more than 7,000 Peruvian companies, small and medium-sized service providers. I believe that the offer that Peru represents and the opportunity that Peru represents at a business level for Chile or for any part of the world, regardless of the political uncertainty that we are going through, is a real fact. In Peru, at the end of the day, things do not end up happening. That is to say, in the end, there are no risks of large demonstrations or, let's say, social collapses, as has happened elsewhere. And that makes Peru continue to be tremendously attractive. We, from our institution, have witnessed for the good that we have not had any company that has decided to withdraw from Peru. None of the projects or companies that have been thinking of investing in Peru have withdrawn or have reduced their projection. On the contrary, in Peru, they continue to be received every week, every month. In the summer month, evidently a little more relaxed. But that has not changed. So that is an unmistakable symbol that Peru continues to be tremendously attractive for Chile.
Finally, you had mentioned my question about the strength of our exportable offer through our suppliers for such a mining country as Chile. Could you elaborate a little more on how Peruvian suppliers have advanced in this Chilean mining market?
Of course, our expertise works both in subway mining and open pit mining. So given, for example, the high operating costs of Chilean mining in recent years, and also that the mining grade is decreasing, the services of quality suppliers, such as the Peruvian ones, are needed to provide these types of products, both consumables, for example, mill balls, geomembranes, among others, equipment, because we also have suppliers that offer drilling machines, for example, drilling equipment to make chimneys in subway mining, but also at another level in the case of services. We also have companies that offer civil works, construction of engineering equipment in the mine, and finally, we also have a group of suppliers that already have facilities, either in warehouses or at the production level. So these are different phases of internationalization that our Peruvian suppliers are fulfilling, Peruvian suppliers, and that we hope to continue positioning and consolidating in Chilean mining.
Well, thank you both very much for being with us. We hope to see you some other time so we can talk a little bit more about Exponor and the details. It's been a long time since Juan Carlos has visited us, so we look forward to it. We look forward to it. Chile is always a very important country in mining. So we hope to have you both here another time as things progress. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Okay, coming to the end of the program, Pablo O'Brien is a little pessimistic, but it is a reality. A little bit pessimistic, but it is a reality. The mess we have, the rainfall is very complicated. They haven't found the key to any of the governments, neither this one nor the previous ones. We are losing a little bit of control of the territory. We are losing control of $2.5 billion, that is almost 2 tamarias a year, of money that should, not all of it, but it should collect a part and pay taxes. And on top of that, the gold goes through Bolivia and Brazil. So it is not a minor issue, it is a very important issue.
That is why Jaime Althaus, our other guest, proposes to develop with imagination a solution to this problem of informality, because we cannot cover our eyes or be radical in going from one extreme to the other, that with the closure of the kingdom, there is a holy solution. It is necessary to look for a solution in between, and especially when Jaime Althaus demands firm political attitudes like that of Fuerza Popular. How is it possible that the free Peruvian people receive the march, and there is no commitment from other political forces that are supposed to be more identified with an activity where capital is invested, where they believe in the freedom of the market as they can be part of this sector?
Besides, the figures need to be a bit more honest. It will be easier if there are 2,500. That's right, if there are 2,500 that really have the possibility of being able to legalize. And I believe that the figures have to be straightened out and legalize what has to be legalized, and the rest is not legal. That is the end of it. Good. Thank you very much for being with us. Thank you very much for being with us. Thank you very much, as always, to Cesar Campos. My name is Jorge Leon Benavides, and we have been with you developing this program of Rumbo Minero. Next is our program, Peru Construye, as always, to talk a little bit about infrastructure and construction. Thank you very much.